Salehu, mashallah. I have here Businessman's Commercial Law Library. And I have here a few other coins that I'm going to go over as far as the fineness of them and the crucialness that it requires, in order to get them. Excuse the mess. I have them in my tea can. All right. So we have here, as we can see, look closely, 1 troy ounce, the purity of it, and we have the serial number. All right, gold clad. All right. That didn't cost much. We have here 1943 mercury dime, 90% silver. I have a bunch of these. And what is this? Let me open it up and see. So I'm gonna turn a few pages in a second. Okay, this is a silver tiger, half ounce, full purity, denomination 50 cents, it's uncirculated. I'll pull an image up. Here you can see, all right, that's engravement of Queen Elizabeth. 2022. So this is going to be worth a lot. And I have here the Republic of Mexico. It has affairs on the front. Libertad. So if you read the Moroccan Treaty, in one of the clauses, it says in the article, one of the most favorite trading nations would be Mexico. So you would have to trade in Mexican dollars, because Manaus to a lot, California, Texas, that is Mexico. So you have their confederacy in the south and you have confederacy in the north. And some of the uncharted territories like Illinois, which is kind of separate from Texas. But here's a book about commercial law. I want to dive into it. If you can tell by the front cover, it's very old. So I just want to find a page where I can kind of just get some pointed guidelines, kind of just, well, here it goes. Okay, businessman's legal advisor, how bailment may cease, what skill must be rendered, bailee must return property after performing the object of bailment, when specific property need not be returned, excuse for non-return, bailee's lien when he is a finder, bailee may assign property, rights of properties when bailee adds to the value of the property. When is the transaction, a bailment or partnership, consequences of loss by fire, etc. Failure to do work properly. When a bailier can recover partial compensation, effect of abandonment by bailee. Bailee can recover when bailier is at fault. failure to perform through inevitable accident. So as you can tell by C, and I went over this yesterday, like when you buy, whether it be gold clad, whether it be any type of silver, whether it be any type of grain of gold, grams, if you buy this from a company, separate from like an independent corporation, actually in all instances, you're supposed to get that insurance policy back when you give away unsigned promissory notes, because you want to keep it as evidence. So when you buy gold, they're supposed to give it back. It doesn't matter if people want to say you're not supposed to get your money back if you pay for a purchase. Well, actually, if you can see right here, according to this page in this book that's been authored, you are supposed to get your money back, because the sailor is at fault. He's taking something for substance and acting as if it is money, and it is not. All right? So the consumer is always protected more so than the sailor. All right, so this is a book right here. It talks about trusteeship, minors, executors. Like, just take a look at the page. Donnie may act as trustee. All right? Gifts by the deceased. So it's letting you know right now the consumer is protected. The consumer is definitely protected. His duty to lease it. His authority to sell trust property. Sell real estate. Management of personal property. How property should be invested. Sale of personal property. Temporary investment of proceeds. His removal. His compensation. All right? So just because the consumer has more rights than the sailor doesn't mean that the sailor is not protected. This is what government is for. A trustee cannot pledge the trust property. All right? It's talking about cashiering, railroad administrators, discharging. So if there's an unlimited amount of resources in the world, then there shouldn't be a problem with any confiscation or any problem with relinquishment. If you read U.S. law, it tells you only gold and silver is money, and anything else cannot be accepted in payments of debt. But obviously, they're not following that guideline. So this is where people have to wake up, and mothers have to wake up and actually enforce the law. Because if you have a son out there, because if you look at it like how it is now, most women, Black American, whatever you choose to call yourself, that's your right, Negroes, most of the women are on jobs. And if you have all women on jobs, like, that's a clear sign that the person that is holding down the trusteeship, in this case an alien, Europeans, they can denounce the son, the daughter, the donee, the beneficiary. They can denounce them in any claim that they make, because the mother is not coming to their aid. So this is where we see a lot of repetitiveship as far as 18-year-old women coming out of high school. They're having children and getting on welfare, so they're already blinded by the fact that they have their responsibilities, so they don't have time to learn about their ability to handle assets that's been inherited to them by their grandfathers and grandmothers. So we're in the blindest spot, and the only way we can get out of that is if everybody become of legal capacity, which means they have to be thinking right. This book helps to a certain degree, but at the same time, it's going to take It's going to take a consciousness for people like women just to get off those jobs. And I know right now with the 2030 agenda, and I'll read this shortly. With the 2030 agenda, they're pushing for gender equality, as if it wasn't ever there. But they're making it more pronounced in their ability to go forward as far as like claiming rights for women, claiming rights for transgenders. So we have to be very poignant about our rights as sons, as daughters, as men. All right. So here it is, 25, effect of false representation concerning subscriptions. False representation of the law, false representation about contents of subscription articles, false representations by agent. All the facts must be considered. Remedy, canceling shares purchased by a company of its own shares. Company may receive shares for debt. Payment for shares, defenses, forfeiture of shares, liability of stockholders for assessment. Corporation includes all. So as an employee, this doesn't just apply to the company. These apply to you as well as an employee. Whether you be in an independent contractor capacity or whether you be in a full capacity. Whatever denomination, these rights apply to you. And as you go to 19 at the top, allotment of shares, a regular subscription, unsubscribed shares, authority of agent to receive subscriptions, de facto stockholder, written contract for shares cannot be varied by parole evidence. There you go. So it doesn't matter what they say, as de facto holders, you ultimately, whether you be incapacitated, whether you be capacitated, if you speak any sense of share, if you speak any sense of law, if you speak any sense of equity, they're supposed to acknowledge it and relinquish your assets. All right, so we're gonna read B right here. Whenever the capital stock of a company is increased under a power conferred by its charter, each stockholder has a right to a proportionate number of the new shares before they can be offered or issued to strangers, unless he waives his rights. So you already know in law, if you don't say nothing, that's called acquiescence. All right, so you waiving your right. And you also know that dedonis means gifting. An employer never tells you that. So when the weekly checks get rolled out and you look at your pay chart and your hours and you see you getting paid a minimum wage or the maximum wage for that year, you're still being cheated, so they're giving you debt and they're disguising it as a gift. And they're not telling you anything about, your shares that you have with the company. They're not telling you anything about the liability stocks that you have, the preferred stocks. They're not telling you that you're a stockholder. They're not telling you anything about earnings that you have accruing on the side, anything. This is automatically grounds for lawsuit. This is automatically grounds for human rights abuse, human rights, automatic grounds. Automatic. So you need to be pointing of that, and you need to speak up about that. And all of this language that they're using, as you can look at those 1609 photos in Virginia of those dark-skinned men sitting by kegs, rolling out tobacco with the feather crowns. This is their language. This is what they use to trade with their sons and daughters of Europe. So be mindful of that. All right. So I'll be back with another video soon. I'll close out right now. Stay at peace. Stay motivated. Stay knowledgeable. Salam Walahi.